I'm 65, and all I wanted that Saturday morning was to watch my grandson play ball. Nothing special, just a simple Little League game under the hot Georgia sun. The kind that makes the aluminum bleachers burn through your jeans. Tyler hit his first home run of the season, and for a minute, I forgot I even had bad knees. I stood up, clapped louder than anyone, smiling like a fool. Then she walked over. My daughter, Melissa. She didn't congratulate her son. She didn't even look at him. She looked straight at me and sneered. "Dad, you're slipping," she said, loud enough for every parent around to hear. "You can't even remember half the kids' names. You're becoming a liability. Honestly, you're turning into a senile burden." Some parents chuckled under their breath. Others looked away, embarrassed for me. I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't say a word. Melissa never stopped when she sensed weakness. She leaned in closer. "Don't worry," she said. "We're taking you out of the will before you screw everything up." There it was. The real reason behind the public show. I sat back down slowly, hands shaking. Not from age, but from the truth I hadn't told her yet. I got to the ball field earlier than anyone else that morning. That's the thing about being 65. You wake up before the sun whether you want to or not. And honestly, I didn't mind. These games were the highlight of my week. Gave me something to look forward to besides the quiet walls of my house. The suburban Atlanta park looked the same as always. Dusty diamond, rusty chain-link fence, and those old aluminum bleachers that scorched your backside the second the sun hit them. Parents were just starting to gather, folding chairs under their arms, coffee cups in hand. Coaches blew whistles. Kids in baggy uniforms jogged lazy circles around the outfield. You could smell fresh-cut grass mixed with hot dogs from the concession stand, even though it was barely 10 in the morning. I took my time climbing up the bleachers. My knees don't bend like they used to, and every step feels like an old hinge that needs oil. But I made it to my usual seat near the middle, close enough to see Tyler's expressions when he swung, far enough that I didn't block anybody's view. Tyler spotted me from the dugout. He gave me this big grin, one of those smiles that makes all the aches vanish for a moment. Kid swings like he was born holding a bat. Confident, focused, nothing like his parents. I waved back, proud as hell. For a few minutes, it felt peaceful. The kind of peace you get only when you're surrounded by families cheering, kids laughing, and the feeling that life is going exactly the way it should. Then Melissa arrived. Late, as usual. Walking fast like she owned the whole damn park, sunglasses on even though there were clouds overhead. Her husband Rick trailed behind her, scrolling on his phone, too important to even look up. She didn't greet me, didn't greet her son. She just sighed dramatically, like climbing 2 bleacher steps was harder than raising a kid. "Dad, why'd you sit so high up?" she said, loud enough for the couple next to us to turn their heads. "You know you walk slow. I swear it takes you 3 years to climb anything." I didn't answer. I've learned not to. Talking only makes her worse. Rick dropped into the seat beside me and made a face, waving his hand in front of his nose. "Geez, Melissa's right," he muttered. "Old man smell hits different in the heat." A few parents glanced over. I focused straight ahead at the field, jaw clenched. Tyler stepped up to bat in that moment. I forced myself to breathe. This was his moment, not mine. He swung at the first pitch. Missed. Second pitch, foul ball. Third pitch, crack. The ball soared so high the outfielders barely reacted before it dropped clean over the fence. Home run. I shot up from my seat, clapping so hard my palms stung. "That's my boy!" I yelled. I didn't care how loud I was. That was my grandson out there running those bases like he was flying. But Melissa cared. "Dad, sit down," she snapped. "God, you're embarrassing. You don't even realize how loud you are anymore." Rick snickered. "Yeah, he's losing it. Probably doesn't even know which team Tyler's on." My hands froze mid-clap. "I'm fine," I muttered. But Melissa wasn't finished. Not even close. She leaned forward, projecting her voice deliberately, making sure everyone around us heard. "Honestly, Dad, you're getting senile. You forgot my birthday last year, didn't you? And last week you called Tyler Timmy. We can't trust you alone with the kids anymore. What if you wander off? What if you drop something? What if you, I don't know, forget them somewhere?" A mom 2 rows down turned her head sharply. Another dad raised his eyebrows. A couple of teens giggled behind me. My heart sank fast. The joy of a minute ago evaporated like it never existed. Melissa folded her arms, looking satisfied with herself. "You're becoming a liability," she said. "And we're tired of covering for you." Rick chimed in. "Yeah, man, you're slipping. Happens at your age." I stared down at my hands resting on my knees. They were shaking, but not from age. From humiliation, Tyler glanced up from the dugout after crossing home plate, searching for me, probably expecting to see me cheering like before. Instead, he found me frozen, silent, staring down at my legs because I didn't trust myself to look at anyone else I swallowed. But it felt like swallowing gravel. Every ounce of pride I had moments ago felt crushed under Melissa's words. The parents around us tried to pretend they didn't hear, but their awkward shifting, the way they avoided eye contact, it told me everything. My own daughter had just dressed me down in public, at my grandson's game, on a field where every moment should have been about his joy, not my shame. And I sat there, an old man, silent, pretending it didn't hurt. But it did, more than she'd ever know. And Melissa had no idea that, while she thought she was tearing me down, I was holding a truth that would tear her whole world apart. Watching Melissa sling those insults at the ball field dug up a whole lifetime's worth of memories, some tender, some jagged enough to still cut. And as I sat there on that metal bleacher, pretending her words didn't sink claws into me, my mind wandered backward, unspooling the long road that led us here. Truth is, Melissa wasn't always this way. She was my little girl once, my only child, the one I swore to raise right after fate punched a hole straight through my life. Her mother, my wife, Angela, died when Melissa was only 6. A car accident on the I-85, one of those nights when rain comes down sideways and headlights smear across the road like ghosts. A truck hydroplaned, crossed the line, and that was that. No goodbyes, no second chances. Just a phone call at 2 a.m. and the world collapsing under me like rotten floorboards. I remember carrying Melissa into the funeral service, her face buried in my neck, her small fingers clutching my shirt like she could anchor herself to something that wasn't drifting away. From that day forward, it was the 2 of us against the world. I worked whatever shifts the warehouse threw at me. Days, nights, doubles. I stacked boxes until my back felt fused in one position. I'd come home with my palms raw from cardboard burns, boots caked in dust, clothes soaked in sweat. And still, I'd stay up late packing lunches, signing school papers, brushing out her knotted hair while she fought sleep. I missed sleep, meals, holidays, whole chunks of my own youth. But I never missed a single dance recital, parent-teacher conference, or birthday. She was my purpose. Melissa grew up smart, too smart sometimes. She had a sharp tongue even as a teenager. If she wanted something, she didn't ask. She demanded. Convinced the world owed her, I figured it was a phase. Kids act out. Kids get selfish. Kids change. But adulthood didn't soften her. It sharpened every selfish edge. By 23, she married Rick, a man who strutted like he'd invented arrogance. He shook your hand like he wanted to break your fingers, talked at you like he was teaching a class nobody wanted to attend, and always wore shirts too tight for his beer belly. The first time I met him, he told me I should update my worldview. I didn't even know what the hell that meant, but he said it with a smirk that made me understand it wasn't a compliment. After the wedding, Melissa drifted into this new persona, high on status, drunk on materialism. Suddenly, the girl I raised with worn-out boots and dollar store school supplies acted like she'd been born royalty. She cared about brand names, expensive vacations, granite countertops. Everything became a competition with her friends and in-laws, and somewhere in that transformation, she started seeing me as a relic, a burden, an embarrassing reminder of where she truly came from. It didn't show all at once. It seeped in slowly, A correction here. A sigh there, a laugh at my old-fashioned ways. A jab about my job, my clothes, my home. Death by 1,000 little cuts. Then Rick started getting involved in my finances. Uninvited, of course. You're sitting on assets you don't even understand, he'd say. You need to modernize your money management, Melissa would chime in. You're too old to handle decisions alone, they'd say together. Every time they talked about decisions, they meant one thing: my land. 12 acres of countryside I bought the hard way, one overtime shift at a time. Back then, land was the only dream I could afford. No fancy trips, no big house, no luxury. Just a stretch of earth an hour outside the city, thick with pines and scrub, where I used to take Melissa on weekends. She'd chase fireflies while I repaired the old fishing shed and taught her how to skip stones across the creek. She used to love that land, used to call it our place. But the older she got, the more zeros she saw instead of memories. For years, she pushed me to sell it. What do you need it for, Dad? It's just sitting there. You could pay for assisted living. You're being stubborn. You don't know the market. You should sign it over before you get too old to think straight. Every visit turned into an argument. And when she wasn't arguing, she was demanding loan money, partial land rights, access to titles, pressure, guilt trips, manipulations. She wanted the land. Rick wanted the money. Neither gave a damn about what it meant to me. But I held my tongue. For years, I let them talk down to me because I thought, stupidly, that keeping the peace would keep the family whole. I smiled through their insults at holidays. I bit back when Melissa said my opinions were prehistoric. I let Rick call me old man like it was a title I should be ashamed of. All because I believed loving them meant tolerating the blows. But that Little League morning, something broke. When Melissa mocked me in front of strangers, called me senile, a danger, someone who shouldn't be trusted around his own grandchildren, it wasn't just disrespect, it was betrayal carved deep. Everything I sacrificed, every hour I sweated, every dream I put aside, it all meant nothing to her. She saw me as a nuisance standing between her and a future payout. And she didn't know, didn't have the slightest clue, that the land she drooled over, the land she treated like her birthright, had been taken out of her reach years ago because the one thing about raising a daughter alone, about surviving a warehouse life, about burying a wife and still pushing forward, is that you learn not to leave things to chance, and you sure as hell don't leave them to people who only show up when they smell profit. I stayed quiet all these years for family unity, but unity's pointless when you're the only one holding the pieces together. And the day she humiliated me at that ball field, that was the day I decided to stop swallowing my pride and let the truth swallow her instead. The game wrapped up with Tyler's team huddling on the field, the little guys piling on each other like they'd won the World Series. Parents clapped, coaches high-fived kids, and the smell of grilled hot dogs drifted from the concession stand. It should have been a warm, proud moment, a simple Saturday memory you tuck away for later. But for me, the whole day felt like a pressure cooker, and Melissa was turning up the heat. I was heading down the bleachers, slow but steady, holding on to the rail because those metal steps feel like ice rinks when your knees don't bend like they used to. I wasn't making a scene, wasn't in anyone's way, just taking my time. But Melissa, of course, found something to criticize. "Well, look at this," she said loudly, arms crossed. "Dad can't even walk down a set of stairs without looking like he's going to topple over." Some parents looked up. A couple of kids stared. I forced a smile. "I'm good, honey. Just taking my time." "Sure," she muttered. "That's what you always say." I reached the bottom, careful, and turned toward the dugout to congratulate Tyler on his hit. But Melissa stepped in front of me, blocking my path like she owned the place. "Dad, you need to stop shouting at games. You were embarrassing us." I blinked. Embarrassing? I was cheering for my grandson. "No," she snapped, loud enough for the parents nearby to hear. "You were shouting like some deranged old man who forgot where he was." Rick walked up with that stupid swagger of his, sunglasses on even though half the field was in shade. "What's going on?" he asked Melissa, not even acknowledging me. She jerked her thumb toward me. "He made a scene again." Rick smirked. "Well, what else is new?" "I didn't make a scene," I said quietly. "I just cheered." Rick chuckled under his breath. "You call that cheering? Looked more like you were having a senior moment." I felt my jaw tighten. "Rick," but Melissa cut me off. "Oh, please, Dad, don't start. You were shaking. Your voice cracked. You forgot Tyler's teammate's name for the 3rd time this month. It's embarrassing." Several parents nearby pretended to look busy packing up chairs and snack coolers, but their ears were aimed straight at us. A couple of coaches glanced over too, exchanging those uncomfortable looks people give when they witness something ugly. And then Tyler, sweet kid, 11 years old, ran up with his glove in his hand, cheeks flushed from the game. "Grandpa, did you see my—" Melissa spun around. "Tyler, go pack your stuff. Grandpa's not feeling well." He looked confused. "But he looks okay." "Tyler," she repeated sharply. "Now." The poor kid wilted like he'd been scolded by a drill sergeant and jogged off. Rick laughed softly. "Even the kid notices, Liz. I mean, look at him." He gestured openly at me, shaking hands, zoning out. "Honestly, it's like dementia, man." I swallowed hard. "I don't have dementia." "Well, you sure acted like it," Melissa shot back. "God, Dad, when Mom died, I swear half your brain went with her." That one hit like a fist. Hard. Fast. Deep. Parents stopped pretending not to hear. Someone gasped. A mom grabbed her son's shoulder and steered him away as if the cruelty might be contagious. I felt the sting behind my eyes. The kind a man swallows because crying in public gets you labeled weak, especially at my age. My throat locked up so tight I couldn't speak even if I wanted to. Not that it would have mattered. Melissa wasn't talking to communicate. She was talking to dominate. "I'm tired of this, Dad," she continued, arms flailing dramatically. "You're holding us back. You're holding the family back. You're not capable of managing anything anymore. It's time to accept it." Rick chimed in, eager to pile on. "We've been talking," he said, "and we think it's best you start transferring responsibilities for your own good." I knew what he meant. He meant my land, my assets, my independence, my dignity, all wrapped in the tidy little bow they called help. I stared at Melissa, and for a split second, I saw the little girl who used to climb into my lap after a nightmare and fall asleep listening to my heartbeat. But that girl was gone, replaced by a woman who spoke like everything I'd done for her was a debt unpaid. "You're done, Dad," she said flatly. "With the will, with decisions, with all of it." I didn't answer. I didn't shout. I didn't defend myself. I just stood there, hands at my sides, the wind rustling the trees behind me like some cruel applause. Inside I felt something crack. A thin, brittle piece of pride that had been holding me together for years snapped clean through. Rick waved a dismissive hand. "Come on, Liz, let's go. He needs rest, or a nurse." They walked off, leaving me standing there alone, surrounded by families celebrating their kids, while mine tore me apart in public. Tyler turned once, watching me with those big, uncertain eyes. I forced a smile and gave him a thumbs up. He hesitated, like he wanted to come over, but Melissa called his name sharply, and he jogged away. I took a long breath, the kind that shakes your ribs. Then I whispered to myself, "I'm okay." But I wasn't. My hands weren't trembling from age that time. They were trembling from holding back something volcanic. Still, I walked toward the parking lot slowly, deliberately, as if calm would somehow make the humiliation hurt less. Every step felt heavier, every breath thicker. A couple of parents offered sympathetic nods. A coach muttered, "Hang in there, sir." Someone else patted my shoulder gently. I nodded politely, as if I hadn't just been broken open in front of them. When I reached my truck, I paused, gripping the door handle until my knuckles went white. I wasn't fine, not even close. But I climbed in, started the engine, and pulled away, quiet on the outside, while inside, a storm I'd held back for years finally began to rage. The drive home felt longer than usual, even though it was just 20 minutes of back roads and cracked suburbs. The sun was dropping low over the Georgia pines, turning the edges of everything gold, the kind of light that makes even ugly places look soft, but not today. Not for me. My hands were steady on the wheel, which surprised me. After a scene like that, any man would shake. But I'd learned long ago that the worst pain doesn't make you tremble. It makes you quiet. When I pulled into my driveway, the same little ranch-style house I'd bought with overtime checks and busted knuckles 40 years ago, I sat in the truck for a full minute before stepping out. The air had that early evening chill, the kind that settles in your bones. I walked inside, closed the door behind me, and let the silence wrap around me. That's when the weight finally hit. Not loud, not messy, just heavy. I leaned against the kitchen counter, head down, palms flat on the cool laminate. My breath came in slow, measured pulls. I wasn't crying. Men my age don't cry easy, but something inside me caved, like an old support beam giving way under decades of pressure. 65 years of trying to be a good father. 65 years of patching holes and swallowing hard truths, and all it got me was a daughter who treated me like trash at my own grandson's game. I stood there until the tightness in my throat eased enough for me to swallow. Then I straightened up, exhaled, and walked toward the bedroom. There, in the back of my closet, behind my old army jacket and a box of faded photographs, was a fireproof lockbox. Black, heavy, cold as sin to the touch. It hadn't been opened in years. My hands didn't shake when I pulled it out. Not this time. I set it on the bed, grabbed the small silver key from my keyring, the one Melissa always asked about, and slid it into the lock. With a soft click, the lid popped open like a coffin releasing a ghost. Inside were 4 things that had been waiting for this exact day. The deed old, yellowed at the edges, but official as the sunrise. 12 acres of countryside property, rolling land, oak trees, and a creek, bought with 3 decades of sweat and sacrifice. The trust documents. Bold letters at the top. Irrevocable trust. My name as grantor. My grandchildren as sole beneficiaries. A notarized letter from my lawyer friend, Arthur McCready, dated 15 years ago. Sealed, signed, binding. And finally, a smaller envelope. My wife's handwriting on the front. Faded but unmistakable. I sat down slowly, the box in front of me. The house silent except for the hum of the old refrigerator. People like Melissa think age equals weakness, but age just means you've lived long enough to prepare. I picked up the envelope first. My wife, Caroline, had written it during her final week, back when she still had breath, when her voice still carried the warmth of every year we'd shared. "If something ever happens to me," she'd whispered one night, hand trembling in mine, "promise me you'll protect the grandkids. Melissa's going down a dark road. Don't let her waste everything we built." I'd promised her. Not because I doubted Melissa back then, but because Caroline never said anything without a reason. When she passed, that small envelope arrived with the rest of her things. I'd never opened it. Not until tonight. Inside was a short note, barely a paragraph. "If the day comes when Melissa turns cruel, the land will protect the children, not her. Trust your judgment. And trust the man you've always been, love. C." My throat tightened again. But this time it wasn't from humiliation. It was from the calm certainty settling inside me. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't anger. This was justice she had predicted before I ever saw it coming. I set the letter aside and picked up the trust documents irrevocable, meaning it couldn't be undone, meaning Melissa could scream, threaten, stomp her feet, hire a lawyer, call me senile, drag me through the mud, and it wouldn't matter. She legally had no claim. Not to the land, not to the trust, not to one single blade of grass on those 12 acres. It was all locked for the grandkids, Tyler, Jenna, and little Samuel, the 3 souls who still looked at me with pure eyes, untouched by their mother's greed. I ran my fingers along the edges of the deed I remembered the night I signed those papers. sweating through my shirt because I had no idea if the bank would approve my loan. I remembered working triple shifts, pocketing leftover overtime like it was treasure. I remembered the calluses, the missed holidays, the years of exhaustion. That land wasn't just dirt. It was my life condensed into acres. No way in hell Melissa was getting it. I reached for my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't used in years. Arthur McCready, attorney at law. We served in the same unit once upon a time. He knew me before the gray hair, before the creaking joints, before life took its toll. He picked up on the second ring. "Arthur," I said quietly, "I think it's time." He didn't even ask for details. He just sighed like he'd been expecting this. "You want everything confirmed?" he asked. "Yes, publicly, if it comes to that." A pause. Then his voice sharpened, the way it did back when he cross-examined witnesses like a wolf. "I'll prep the papers. Bring the originals. And, you okay, old friend?" "I am now," I said. He grunted. "Good. About damn time you used those protections." When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not joy, not anger. Control. Quiet, steady control. Melissa wanted a public scene? She wanted to humiliate me in front of families, parents, coaches. Fine, I'd give her a scene she'd never forget. But mine wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be messy. It wouldn't be hateful. It would be clean, cold, unshakable, and it would be delivered with the dignity she thought I didn't have anymore. I placed the documents back in the box, closed the lid, and locked it. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. Not on a dusty baseball field, but in the one place Melissa had never imagined she'd lose: the truth. The park pavilion sat at the far end of the baseball field, tucked under a cluster of old oaks that spread shade like a wide umbrella. Kids sprinted around with still warm energy from the game, parents unloaded coolers, and the smell of charcoal smoke mixed with cut grass and mustard from a dozen open condiment bottles. It was supposed to be a simple team celebration, burgers sizzling, laughter bouncing around the wooden beams, kids chasing each other with half-melted popsicles. But after what happened on those bleachers, the whole place felt like a stage, and I could feel Melissa preparing for her next act. I didn't want to attend the barbecue. Honestly, I wanted to go home, sit on my porch swing, and pretend the world didn't include a daughter who talked to me like a disposable item. But Tyler had asked earlier in the week if I'd come for the food and games after the match. That boy still believed I was worth showing up for. So I walked in slowly, one careful step at a time, the fireproof box locked away at home like a loaded gun waiting for its moment. I took a seat at the edge of the picnic table, just far enough to avoid the crowd, but close enough to see Tyler. He was laughing with two teammates, batting a plastic bottle cap with a stick like it was the bottom of the 9th in the World Series. And then I heard her Melissa's voice, shrill, performative, dipped in sugar but sharp as a tack. "Yeah, we're handling Dad's affairs soon. You know, before things get out of control." I froze. She wasn't even trying to be discreet. She was standing near the grill with two other moms, smiling like she'd won some election. One mom whispered, "Oh, is he okay?" Melissa sighed dramatically and pressed a hand to her chest. "Well, you saw him today. He's slipping. We're just stepping in to protect him. Someone has to take charge." Take charge of what, exactly? My life? My choices? My land? But she wasn't done. Rick appeared beside her with 2 beers in hand, passing one to her like he'd just arrived to give moral support to his queen. He chuckled loudly. "Honestly, the old man can't even handle a checkbook anymore. Power of attorney's coming soon. We'll make sure everything is done the right way." A couple of dads nodded sympathetically, unaware they were feeding into my daughter's delusion. Melissa rolled her eyes, loud enough for half the pavilion to hear. "He's stubborn as hell. Fights us every step. It would be easier if he just signed the papers. But he's, well, old." A few parents shot glances my way. Awkward, uncomfortable glances like the ones people give a patient who's wandering away from a hospital bed. I didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't defend myself. Let her talk. Let her build her own stage. She had no idea the floorboards beneath her were already termite-ridden. I opened a water bottle, sipping slowly, watching the kids. I didn't want her poison to ruin the only joy I had in that moment. Then I heard small footsteps pattering up beside me. "Grandpa?" Tyler. Helmet hair, dirt smudged on his cheek, eyes bright. He held his little baseball trophy in both hands like it was the world's rarest jewel. Did I make you proud today?" Oh God, that hit harder than anything Melissa said. I swallowed the lump in my throat and smiled. "You made me prouder than you'll ever know, kiddo. That home run? You flew." His smile stretched wide. He hopped onto the bench next to me and leaned his head against my shoulder. "Mom said you were tired because you're old." I stiffened. He continued softly, "But you don't seem old to me. You're just Grandpa." I placed my hand gently on his back. "That's all I ever want to be." We sat like that for a minute. Quiet, easy, natural, a moment that reminded me who I was doing all this for. But peace never lasts long in a place where pride is the main dish. "Dad!" Melissa's voice cut through the chatter. I looked up. She marched toward us with a clipboard in her hand. Rick trailed behind her like a shadow, smirking. "Dad, we need to take care of something now." Tyler slid off the bench, eyes darting between us. "Mom, what's that?" "Grown-up stuff," she snapped. "Go play." He obeyed. But not before giving me one last, confused glance. Melissa slapped the clipboard onto the picnic table. Papers clipped neatly, highlighted sections, signature lines waiting like open jaws. "I printed these out today," she announced loudly, making sure nearby parents could hear. "Power of attorney. Basic stuff. It's for your safety, Dad. Just sign at the bottom." I stared at the papers without touching them. "And why?" I asked quietly. "Would I need that?" Melissa laughed, cold, condescending. The kind of laugh people use when they've already decided you're beneath them. "Because you can't handle your life anymore. It's obvious. Everyone here saw it today. Right, Rick?" Rick nodded, puffing up his chest. "Yep. You're not fit to manage finances or property. We're just doing what's best." Best for who? Because it sure as hell wasn't me. Parents nearby were pretending not to watch, but their eyes flicked toward us again and again like moths to a porch light. Melissa tapped the paper with her pen. "Just sign it. Don't make a scene." The irony nearly made me laugh. Me making a scene? After everything she had done today? I sat back, calm as a man waiting for tea to cool. "No," I said softly. Melissa blinked, as if the word confused her. "What?" "No," I repeated. "I'm not signing anything." She scoffed. "Dad, don't be ridiculous. You're not capable of handling decisions anymore. Just sign it." I said no. Melissa's face darkened, her jaw clenching. She raised her voice, intentionally loud. "He doesn't understand what he's saying. This is why we have to take control before he ruins everything." Rick stepped closer. "Sir, you're making this harder on yourself." That was the moment the hush rolled through the pavilion, like someone had pressed mute on the entire place. Conversations dipped. Chairs stopped scraping. People angled their bodies to watch while pretending they weren't. I looked at the two of them, my own daughter and her husband, publicly cornering me like I was some failing appliance they needed to replace. I didn't shout, didn't argue, didn't give them the reaction they wanted. Instead, I closed the water bottle, stood up slowly, and said, "I'm going home." Melissa scoffed. "Unbelievable. Fine, but we'll deal with this soon, Dad. One way or another." I nodded once. "Oh, we will," I said quietly. "But not the way you think." They didn't catch the warning. They didn't see the shift. But they would. Soon. Very soon. I didn't sleep much that night. Didn't need to. When a man finally reaches his breaking point, clarity keeps him awake better than caffeine. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The team had its weekly Sunday meetup. Kids hanging out, coaches doing cleanup, families stopping by. Melissa would be there. Rick, too. They loved any chance to strut in front of a crowd. So I drove back to the same park, same pavilion, same cluster of oaks. Parents were already gathering, passing around donuts, kids running wild with leftover energy. The world looked peaceful, perfect, I walked in slow and steady, the fireproof lockbox tucked under my arm like it was nothing more than a lunch pail. A couple of dads nodded politely. Some moms gave me sympathetic smiles after yesterday's scene. Melissa must have spun her version of the story all night. She spotted me from across the pavilion. Her eyes narrowed immediately. "Oh, great," she muttered loudly. "He's back," Rick snorted. "Probably forgot the humiliation from yesterday old age, man." A few parents exchanged awkward glances. I didn't respond, didn't even look at them. I simply walked to the center of the pavilion, set the lockbox on the picnic table, and opened it with the silver key. The small click echoed like a gunshot. Melissa froze mid-sentence. From inside, I slid out the original land deed. Yellowed edges, crisp lettering. I unfolded it carefully. The paper came alive like an old flag catching wind. "Dad," Melissa laughed nervously. "What the hell is that?" I looked up at her calmly. "My land, my life's work." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, God, not this again. Dad, we told you. Rick and I will manage it. You can't handle—" I raised a hand. Just one hand. Silence dropped instantly. A few parents drifted closer, sensing the tension, like the air before a thunderstorm. I pressed the deed flat on the table and said, loud enough for the entire pavilion to hear, "This land is not yours, Melissa. It was never yours. And it will never be yours." Her smile twitched. "Dad, don't start." I tapped the deed with my finger. 12 acres, bought with my own hands, and protected long before your greed ever showed its face. People whispered. Rick squinted, stepping forward. "What the hell are you talking about?" I lifted the second document. The trust papers, thick, official, sealed with the original notary's stamp. "This," I said, "is an irrevocable trust I created 15 years ago." The word irrevocable hit her like a slap. Melissa blinked rapidly. What? "It means it cannot be changed. It cannot be undone. It cannot be claimed. Not by you. Not by Rick. Not by anyone." A hush rippled through the pavilion. I continued, voice steady as steel. "The land belongs entirely, permanently, to my grandchildren. Tyler, Jenna, Samuel. No one else is entitled to a damn inch of it." Melissa's face drained of color so fast she looked ghostly. "No," her voice cracked. "No, Dad, you can't do that. That's my inheritance. You promised—" "I never promised you a thing," I said. "Not this. Not ever." Rick stepped closer, face red. "This is ridiculous. We're family. That land should pass to Melissa. She's your daughter." I met his eyes. Family doesn't humiliate their elders in public. Family doesn't try to steal. Family doesn't treat a man like furniture to be tossed out. He faltered, glancing sideways as parents stared at him. Melissa shook her head violently. "You're lying. You're confused. Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. That's my future. That's my security. You can't just give it away." "Oh, I didn't give it away," I corrected. "I protected it." I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Arthur, and hit speaker, Arthur McCready speaking. I raised the phone high so everyone could hear. "Arthur, can you confirm the status of the land trust?" "Of course," he said, voice booming through the speaker. "The land belongs exclusively to your grandchildren. Melissa Carter has zero legal claim and never will." Melissa gasped. "Arthur, wait. I didn't agree to this." "You were never required to," Arthur replied coldly. "Your father established the trust independently. It is binding, permanent, and legally bulletproof." Parents murmured. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Rick looked like he'd swallowed a lemon whole. Arthur wasn't done. "And, given current real estate values," he said, "the property is estimated to be worth well over 7 figures. Gasps everywhere. Tyler froze where he was playing, staring at us. Melissa's legs buckled slightly. 7? What? No, Dad, please, you can't." Arthur continued mercilessly. "Melissa, you have no control, no authority, and absolutely no inheritance rights to that land. None." The pavilion went dead silent. Rick took a step back from Melissa like she'd suddenly become radioactive. His face twisted with embarrassment, the kind that cuts deeper than a blade. He wasn't married to a wealthy heir anymore. He was married to someone with nothing. Melissa grabbed the edge of the table, voice cracking in a scream. "You can't do this to me!" I looked her straight in the eyes. "I didn't do it to you. I did it because of you. Your behavior made this necessary long before today." Her chest rose and fell rapidly, breaths sharp and shallow. She looked around desperately, searching for one sympathetic face. Not a single parent moved toward her. Not one. Rick muttered, "This is unbelievable," and stormed off, pushing through the crowd, refusing to look back at her. Melissa reached for me, shaking. "Dad, please, we can fix this. We can talk." I stepped away. "Tyler," I said gently, "come here, buddy." He jogged over, eyes wide. I kneeled, slowly, joints popping, and handed him the trust document. "This is your future, yours and your siblings. No one else's." He threw his arms around my neck so fast my hat nearly fell off. "I love you, Grandpa." My eyes burned, but I held it together. "I love you too, kid." Behind us, Melissa collapsed onto the bench, face buried in her shaking hands. Humiliated, exposed, defeated. Karma doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just speaks the truth out loud. Word spreads fast in a suburban baseball community. Faster than any home run Tyler could ever hit. By Monday morning, half the team parents knew exactly what went down at the pavilion. I didn't mean for it to become gossip, but truth has a way of traveling when someone's been acting like royalty without the crown. When I walked up to the field for practice, a few dads gave me those firm, respectful nods. The kind men give one another when something big has shifted. A couple moms greeted me warmer than usual. Even Coach Ramirez clapped me on the back and said quietly, "Heard you handled your business, Mr. Carter." I just smiled. 65 years on this earth has taught me, you don't gloat about justice. You just let it live where it lands. But across the field, Melissa wasn't getting nods. She was getting whispers. Small clusters of parents leaned in, murmuring behind hands. Moms traded looks. Dads smirked or shook their heads. Everyone had seen her cruelty. Some had experienced it firsthand. Now they had the full picture, and the woman who strutted around like she owned the place suddenly couldn't even make eye contact. She walked stiffly, chin high, pretending not to hear. But she heard. Rick showed up too. Though he kept a 10-foot distance from her the entire time, they both looked like they'd aged 5 years overnight. Rick's face was twisted in a permanent scowl. Melissa's eyes were puffy like she hadn't stopped crying since yesterday. During warm-ups, I overheard them arguing near the dugout. They weren't exactly subtle. "You embarrassed me," Rick hissed. "I embarrassed you?" Melissa shot back. "You ran off like a coward. Because you looked like a lunatic screaming about inheritance in public. I was blindsided. You said that land was ours. You promised. It was supposed to be ours. Well, now it's nothing. We have nothing." Parents tried not to stare, but how do you ignore a meltdown happening 10 feet away? Melissa stomped off, face burning. Rick stayed behind, pacing with his hands on his hips, muttering curses under his breath. That marriage had cracks long before this. But losing imaginary millions has a way of splitting the concrete clean open. By Wednesday, things got worse for them. They tried to challenge the trust. I found out because Arthur called me laughing. Actually laughing. "Your daughter and son-in-law showed up in my office demanding I reverse the trust." "And?" I asked. And I told them what the law already told them. Irrevocable means irrevocable. They don't have a legal leg to stand on. They threw the biggest tantrum I've seen in my 40-year career. Threatened to sue, threatened to expose corruption, threatened everything. Until I told them I recorded the entire conversation. I sighed. "Thanks, Arthur." "Don't thank me," he said. "Your wife was a smart woman. This trust was bulletproof by her design." My chest tightened, just hearing that. God, I missed her. On Thursday, Melissa tried a different strategy. She showed up at my house, didn't knock softly. She pounded the door like she was trying to break it. When I opened it, her face was mascara-streaked, eyes swollen, hair messy. This wasn't the Melissa who strutted around the ballpark. This was the cornered Melissa, the desperate one. "Dad?" she whispered. "Please, you can fix this." I didn't speak. "You can redo the trust," she said quickly. "I Googled it. There are ways. You can sign something. We can undo it. I know you didn't mean to cut me out. I know you were just angry, Melissa," I said softly. She stopped talking. I kept my voice steady, not cruel. It wasn't anger. It was protection. She stared at me in disbelief. I added, "You haven't treated me like family in years. And you sure haven't treated your kids' future like it matters. That land is theirs, not yours." She wiped her eyes furiously. "So that's it? You're choosing them over your own daughter?" "I'm choosing the ones who haven't tried to strip mine my life while I'm still breathing." Her lip trembled. I need the money, Dad." "Why?" I asked. "New car? Spa membership? Vacation you can brag about?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then her voice dropped to a small, bitter whisper. "You're gonna regret this." "No," I said. "I already regret not doing it sooner." She stormed off in tears, tires squealing out of my driveway. That was the last time she tried guilt. By the weekend, her social standing at the ballpark was done. Finished. Parents didn't avoid her. They dismissed her. Conversations stopped when she approached. People turned their bodies away. Coach Ramirez politely suggested she take some space from team gatherings because she had created unnecessary tension. That broke her worse than anything I said. Melissa always needed an audience more than she ever needed family. Meanwhile, things shifted for me too. Some of the dads started inviting me to sit with them during practice. Moms brought extra cookies for Tyler and his grandpa. The coach asked if I'd help monitor batting practice. Even parents who didn't like getting involved in drama gave me quiet respect, because everyone there had seen or felt her nastiness before, and then came the moment that made everything worth it. Tyler jogged over after practice, glove tucked under his arm. He looked nervous, like he was building up to something big. "Grandpa?" he said softly. "Yeah, buddy?" "Coach said I've got a good arm. He said I could try pitching this season." He looked down at his shoes. "Do you think you could train me? I mean, if you want to." My throat tightened instantly. This boy, this sweet kid, wanted me, not the parents yelling and scrambling around him. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Buddy, I'd be honored." He grinned so big it nearly split his face. "Really?" "Really," I chuckled. "Tomorrow morning I'll pick you up at 8. We'll start with footwork." From across the field, Melissa watched, eyes red, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. She didn't approach, didn't say a word. She knew she'd lost something far bigger than land. She'd lost respect. She'd lost the community. She'd lost her son's trust, and she'd done it to herself. The strange thing about peace is that it doesn't show up with fireworks. It walks in quietly, like an old friend finally knocking on your door after years of being lost. For me, that peace came a few weeks after the blow-up at the pavilion. Tyler's team needed an extra set of hands, someone to help the kids warm up, someone patient enough to teach basics without yelling. Coach Ramirez approached me after practice one afternoon, rubbing his neck shyly like a kid asking for help with homework. "Mr. Carter, I could use a guy like you on the field," he said. "You've got a calm way with the boys. And Tyler, he listens to you." I didn't hesitate. "Yeah, Coach, I'd be happy to." And just like that, I wasn't just a grandpa in the bleachers anymore. I was part of the team. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I showed up early, raking the dirt off the pitcher's mound, setting up cones, checking the buckets of baseballs. The kids started running toward me when they arrived. "Coach Carter, watch this." "Coach Carter, can you fix my stance?" "Coach Carter, look, I can throw a curve." Hearing Coach attached to my name stirred something in me I didn't realize I'd been starving for. Purpose. For years I'd felt like I was fading, retirement slowing my days, loneliness stretching them long. Melissa's constant demeaning comments had eaten away at me until I almost believed them myself. But those boys? They didn't see an old man. They saw someone who cared, someone who showed up. Tyler, especially. That kid blossomed like spring grass. His confidence shot up. His pitch gained speed. His smile came easier. One evening after practice, while packing equipment, Coach leaned over to me and whispered, "He's got potential. You know, real potential. You're doing good work with him." I looked across the field at Tyler, laughing with his teammates, glove tucked under his arm, and felt something warm in my chest. Pride. The real kind. The kind no insult could erase. The social freeze didn't thaw. Parents kept their distance. Her queen bee routine didn't land anymore. When she tried to strike up conversations at the concession stand, people nodded politely but turned away quickly. Pretending to check texts or refill water bottles, Rick barely came around at all. Rumors floated that he was staying with a friend until things cooled down. I didn't need details. Their marriage had always been built on sand. Melissa tried new tactics. At first, anger. Then, tears. Then, silence. Then the messages started. Long ones. At night, I'd hear my phone buzz on the kitchen counter. She sent paragraphs about how she never meant to hurt me, how she had been under stress, how she wants to rebuild what we lost. Some messages were downright dramatic. "Dad, you're all I have. Please don't throw me away. I'm sorry. I didn't mean those things. I'm not okay without my family." I read them. I didn't delete them. But I didn't respond either. Forgiveness is one thing. Rebuilding trust is another beast entirely. And I wasn't about to let her back into the driver's seat of a life she'd tried to wreck. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Tyler and I drove out to the countryside. 12 acres of quiet Georgia earth, rolling like a soft green sea under the clouds. When he stepped out of the truck, he froze, eyes wide. "Grandpa, this is huge." "Sure is," I said, hands in my pockets. "Your grandma and I bought it when your mom was little, saved every dime to make it happen." He walked forward slowly, dragging his fingers through tall grass, twisting a weed stem between his fingers like he was holding something sacred. "What's gonna happen to it?" he asked. "Well," I said, "that depends on you." "Me?" I nodded. "You and your brother and sister. It's yours someday. My job is just to keep it safe until you're ready." He swallowed, eyes shining. "I won't let you down, Grandpa." "You won't. None of you will." We walked across the land side by side. Birds hopped between branches. The breeze carried the smell of pine. The sound of a distant creek trickled somewhere off to the right. I showed him the old pecan trees, the open field where deer sometimes crossed, the spot where his grandmother wanted to build a cabin before cancer stole her chance. Tyler looked around quietly, absorbing everything. "You know," he said softly, "Mom told me this place was going to be ours. Like hers and Dad's." I stopped walking. "Well, she was wrong. She's been mean lately," he whispered. "To you. To everybody. I didn't like it." I placed a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes people get lost inside themselves, and they don't realize how far they've wandered until they're standing alone. He nodded, thinking hard. I kept my voice gentle. "Your mom's choices are hers. They don't have to be yours." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Tyler knelt down, grabbed a handful of soil, and let it slip through his fingers. "This is good land," he said. "Yeah," I whispered. "It is." Good land, good kid, good ending. Everything I fought for was right here. As we walked back to the truck, I glanced over the acres one last time. The sun dipped low, coloring the fields gold, the same shade my wife loved at sunset. Melissa thought she could bury me with insults and walk off with everything I worked for, but she forgot something simple. I planted this land myself, and I planted it for the ones who deserved it, and now I finally had peace.